So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Michael Cluskey, who's the owner of Go Shred. So, Michael, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Go Shred, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, sure. Nice to meet you, Chris. My name's Michael Cluskey, as you've said, owner of Go Shred. We've been going for 10 years now. It's our 10th anniversary. We were founded in 2014. I worked in the shredding industry for over a decade prior to that for various companies, up to director level. And we decided to start our own shredding company based on things we'd learned, things we wanted to take from companies I'd worked at, things that I definitely didn't want to do from companies that I'd worked at. That constant pursuit of excellence is based on those two tenets, really, which is do what's working, try and avoid doing what isn't working.
Brilliant.
We do confidential shredding, which is an essential service for every business. Who is your typical customer? Everybody should be our customer because everybody should be compliant with the GDPR. We also do confidential, as well as confidential shredding, we do document scanning, which is a service that we've been doing now for the last 18 months, 2 years, which is becoming bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And that is where we go into businesses and work with them to turn all their workflow digital, which really came from a chap called Stuart Galloway, who I follow quite a lot online.
Yeah.
Prof G, some people know him. He's quite a blunt talking American person who talks a lot about business, the stock markets and financial things. And he said that one of the things that he wished he'd known when he was younger was to diversify.
Yeah.
So we're 10 years into this, and I figured that we should start looking at diversification.
Right.
Or I should start looking at diversification in particular. And that's where the scanning came in. So I've had a lot of people telling me that confidential shredding, well, that's a dying industry, isn't it? Everybody's going paperless. Well, there's another side to that story. And the very short answer is not very quickly.
No.
But if they are going to go digital and they are going to go paperless, then one huge part of that is going to be getting all of their heritage paperwork and getting it digital so that they can access it very easily.
Brilliant.
So those are the two main parts of our business. Obviously, the huge part of it is the confidential shredding, but a growing part of it is the document scanning.
Wonderful, wonderful. Because I mean, it would be understandable to look to future and say over time, digitalization is part. I have several customers that are paperless now, but you're developing the diversification to support the other side of that coin, I guess. So makes absolute sense and a great thing to have done. And you mentioned slightly earlier, and I think it's worth really just pausing. 10th anniversary, really important. I don't know how well aware you are of the survival stats of businesses, but they are quite stark, which is 80%. Unfortunately, 80% of businesses will fail in the first 5 years of operation, and of the 20% that remain, another 80% of those will fail in the following 5 years. So to get to 10 years puts you in the top 4% of business statistics. So really, congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I did read a statistic this morning, said that 60% of US startups in the last year have gone under.
Right.
The provenance of that, I'm not too sure. Source, the internet. So say from that what you will. But it was quite an eye opener. So thank you very much for that. I will tell you that those statistics were right at the forefront of my mind. In at least the first 5 years of our existence.
Brilliant.
And in the following 5 years, they were even more in the front of my mind, because no matter how much, how many customers you amass, how much so-called wealth one amasses, which is an abstract term in itself, but no matter how much you accrue, as it were, you're still always looking, or I in particular, I shouldn't say everybody, but I am always looking over my shoulder and going, are we going to be okay? Are we going to be okay? So I've managed to turn that from an unhealthy thing into a healthy thing, I think.
Great.
Which hopefully guides the possibly a more sensible approach, shall we say, to investments and risk taking. I wouldn't say I was totally risk averse, but everything is a carefully thought out business decision.
I think ultimately where there's risk, there's profit. So it is something, but it is managing the level to make it healthy, as you rightly say. So making reasoned decisions based on the information we have is important, and business changes very quickly, and the business landscape changes. So being able to be comfortable in making decisions, I think, is really key for a successful business leader and business owner.
Comfortable decisions, if there is such a thing. Working to somewhere where you can actually press the go button, I think. And for example, we're just at the moment going through a period of slight change, and there's some capital expenditure being spent. And to press the go button, I made sure I ticked as many of my worry boxes as possible to ensure that we were doing the right thing. But we actually operate with we have a number of different things that we work to, but the major overriding one is one that I stole from sports, and from a sport that I'm particularly involved in, actually, which in turn had stolen it from another sport, which was the Olympic rowing team.
Oh, okay.
The question was always, will it make the boat go faster? And that is something that we always work to. We've got it written up on the whiteboards down in the warehouse. It's in the office. Will it make the boat go faster? And I just say to everyone who works for us, I want to do X. Will it make the boat go faster? Will it make us a more tangible business? Will it make the workflow work better?
Yep.
Will it make the boat go faster? And it's become shorthand within the business, really, for whether or not we make decisions. And I'll tell you now, some of them, sometimes I think maybe 20, 30 years ago, before I was aware of that expression, or as aware as I am today, shall we say, I might not have applied that and made some decisions and just said, what are you doing? And then sometimes if it stands that, it's got to get past the first hurdle.
Yep.
Will it make the boat go faster? It just makes you think about what you're doing.
Brilliant.
And you can go into as much depth or be as quick as you can about it based on that simple question.
Like it, I really like it. I remember we were a fairly fast growing business in my first business, and I got to the point where there were decisions that had to be made almost on a daily, certainly weekly, monthly basis that were very significant, and I had to come to this philosophy of, I'll make a decision. The most important thing is make a decision, take action. Therefore, I'll make a decision with the information I've got, and by my action, I'll make it the right decision or the best decision, if that makes sense. Sometimes you can't actually know it's the right decision. You just have to have the confidence in your own ability and your team's ability to deliver on that decision, if that makes any sense.
No, totally. Making those decisions, so many things just melt away in the cold light of day when in business. And like I say, I'm lucky. I've worked for other people in a number of different industries over the years. I've started out as a postgraduate in the television and film industry, and then I went into the music industry.
Oh wow!
And then worked and decided to leave that industry for legion reasons. I won't bore you with that, but was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And the first interview that came through the letterbox was as a regional salesman for a confidential shredding company. And
right.
Like, yeah, okay, I'll give that a go. My son had just been born. I was living in and out of a suitcase, flying all over the world, which sounds very glamorous. I looked after pretty much most of the world for a product line that I was responsible for in my
Right.
previous role, and it was like, no, I'm done with airports, I'm done with flying, I'm done with being away from home. My son had just been born, and it was like, this is perfect.
Great.
Yeah, that's all those years working across all those disciplines and everything. You see some decisions that you think, what were you doing? Hit the cold light of day and just fail miserably.
Yeah.
Because they weren't very well thought through for in one way or another.
Yes.
Either commercially or whether or not it's going to be a success in the market, or has it been marketed properly? Has the right feedback been done? Has enough R&D been done on it? So you see this over and over again, and that's what informs you when you're making those decisions. 100%.
Brilliant. So looking back over the last 10 years, what are some of the biggest issues and challenges that you'd say you'd have to overcome, Michael?
Yeah, we can call me Mike if you like. Everybody else does.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything but Mick. Which
right, got it.
I'm going to regret saying that, because everyone who's seen this will then start calling me Mick. What have been the major challenges? I think they're probably, as I said to you, when we were chatting before we came on, I've looked at quite a few of your podcasts that you've done. Of course, the overarching one for everyone in the last 10 years has been COVID, and I'm sure we'll come to that in quite some detail. I've got quite a few things that we went through during that time that were more than a challenge. But it's funny looking back. Something you said earlier triggered this, so I just jotted it down. And another motto, I am one for mottos.
Great. Well, I collect them, as you might know.
My wife who I own the business with and run the business with, and anybody who knows me will know Belinda. She's definitely the front facing part of the business. She looks after. She's our customer service director, so she's got a hand in everything from sales to operations to marketing to everything. And she's a massive asset, and I could write sonnets about her and sing sonnets all day. But one of the things that we have talked about from the beginning was one day we'll look back at this and laugh. And the first few times that happened, and either of us said it to the other, we were like, yeah, right. The first time that you have to ask the bank for an overdraft, is it possible to get an overdraft? Because I'm not sure. Whatever. When we first started the company, we were paying ourselves piecemeal.
Yeah.
So you pay yourself a few £100 here, a few £100 there. As the money was coming in, you sit there and you're going, oh God, can we buy some shopping? We've paid the mortgage, thank God. That's the big lump gone.
Yeah.
Which is also what she says every time I leave the house. So we're okay on that respect, but can we afford the shopping? Well, okay. We'll wait and see if XYZ Co pays us next week, and then we can we'll pay ourselves a little bit more, But yeah, you know what? One day we'll look back and laugh at this, and guess what? We do,
Brilliant.
And going for years and years and years without a holiday. My company car, the van. When I first started the company, I have vintage scooters. I was going to meetings on a 50-year-old Lambretta.
Brilliant.
With a bag slung over me like
Fabulous.
that. Turn up at the meeting. Hopefully it hasn't chucked it down. Open my bag, take your stuff out. Go, let's talk about this. Sometimes it was a talking point. Sometimes nobody even noticed as I walked into reception, taking my helmet off. The package has arrived. No, I've got a meeting. So that one day we'll look back and laugh at this. So these are the challenges, and when these challenges come along, you can normally, if you've got the resilience, if you've got a good business that you believe in, and you've put a few quid to one side, every time a few quid comes in, you put it to one side to invest during that year at some stage in something that will, because you've got to have a contingency there. No contingency required. There's more money coming. Okay, let's think about doing that thing that we were talking about doing.
Brilliant.
Let's think about doing that, and various other stuff. But then 2020 comes along, and everything changes.
Yeah.
Well, by that stage, we had between 1,500 and 2,000 customers.
Wow.
That's a lot of customers.
Yes.
That's great, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
And they're all sitting in offices normally and
Yep.
going in and out, and you're taking sacks of shredding from them, and you're putting cabinets in there, and you're doing all your paperwork, and isn't it great? And I've got the lads working for me. I've got numerous vans going out and around picking stuff up, and then all that Tuesday night, Boris Johnson gets up, stands, says what he says. So I want you all to go home, and I want you not to work.
Yeah.
All the offices are closed.
Yeah.
Everything's closed. That includes the government, except for essential services. Guess what's an essential service? Well, you got the NHS, you got the fire, ambulance, police, all those things. Guess what else became, schools became an essential service then.
Yes.
Universities. Okay, let's talk about distance learning. We can work on that.
Yep.
We can work from home from the universities, but schools, where's everyone going to send their kids who needs to go and do these essential jobs? So we'll keep the schools open with the skeleton staff. So then we start thinking to ourselves, there's no offices open. We've got nobody to go and collect from. Thank God the furlough scheme came along. So we put the lads on furlough. We also took a decision as a company, because we'd been there through financial hardship ourselves.
Yep.
Well, we decided as a company, and because of the way that we are, that we would pay our staff 100%. We didn't pay them 80%.
Great.
Has that paid off? At the time, it was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
But I like to think we have anyone who's one of our customers will know, oh, it's Gav, it's Simon, it's Luke, it's Glenn. They're coming through the door. They know the guys.
Yeah.
I don't have churn.
Yeah.
We don't have churn in our staff because we look after our staff,
Brilliant.
So did it hurt? Yes. Has it been good for us in the long run? I think so. Yeah. The second thing that we did that most of our competitors didn't do, these were contracted customers, remember. So I had a lease car at the time and leases on vans.
Yeah.
Well, I could have rung them up, but I knew what the answer was. Well, I'm not going anywhere. So, I'm not going to pay my lease. I'm not going to pay the repayments. I'm not going to pay this. Hey, landlord, I'm not going to pay for my unit. Well, they were like, tough. You still got to pay for it.
Yes.
So all those things still had to be paid for. And we had a decision as a company. What are we going to do? How is this going to be for us? And we had companies who we rang up. We had to ring everybody up. Obviously, everyone just pulled their head into their shell at that time.
Yes.
So nobody was going to start ringing around and going, are we going to pay you? And we took a decision at that time not to charge our customers, our regular customers, because we weren't providing a service.
Right. Wow.
Even though they had our units in there, they had our cabinets, our wheelie bins, our this, which by rights they should have been paying a rental on, really. We speculated on how long this was going to be before we could get back to work. And our speculations were we can survive for 3 to 6 months. So that was tough for us. But I like to think, and I hope they remember it, because I think some people maybe aren't even aware of it, that we weren't charging them when we could have been. Contractually, I could have charged them full price every month for the service we were supposed to be providing, but we didn't.
Brilliant.
And I like to think, again, that has engendered some loyalty with our customers, as much loyalty as one can do in any commercial relationship.
Yes.
We're not naive.
But it sounds like the proof is in the pudding, because I think, if I'm right, you said going into COVID, it was something like 1,500 clients that you had, and now I don't know if that was when we said it started. I
Well,
think be talking about 4,000 or so. So
he's just a tad under 4,000 customers. Yeah.
I would imagine that the proof it has to be the pudding is that significant growth will have.
Hey, it sounds great, doesn't it? Don't forget, not all of them are contracted.
No, but
it's quite a lot of them are ad hoc, but the ad hocs then turn into, well, we'll use you every month, every 4 months, every 6 months, every year. So they do come back to us. Brilliant. They are returning customers. They are customers who are with us and contracted to us.
Brilliant.
But yeah, so that was a tough decision. That was. And then at the same time, I put everybody on furlough. All the lads are on furlough. The office staff are on furlough. And it ended up being me because guess what? The schools and the hospitals and the doctor's surgeries and the whatever essential services, they're still going.
Yep.
So they're still producing paper. So I had to get back in the van, go out, start doing collections myself. So I was basically doing the whole lot on my Todd. Well, obviously with Belinda helping, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pitching in and everything, but just going out on the emptiest of empty roads and and having a great time. You know, I've got to say you've got to look at the silver lining in every cloud, and I've got to say, just as an aside, driving around during COVID was amazing.
I can imagine. The odd trip that I took, I think there was that point when you could take a trip a few miles. I can't remember the details. Yeah. Just getting out onto empty roads that normally would be chock-a-block. Yeah. Quite impressive. I can imagine.
I think it's funny, you know, because everybody's experience of how COVID went was different, and everybody's experience was very, very, very different. Ours is by no way a sob story because people went through worse. People had better times. You know, I mean, I don't know about you, but you go post-COVID, you'd be hearing about people going, we've had record revenues. You know, let me give you one side effect. Cardboard. The cardboard market went mad during COVID. Why is that? Because there's less cardboard being produced by business, but the likes of Amazon and all these other online shops who, because people were sat at home, not able to spend their money, had so much disposable income, we're just buying stuff off online, you know, for
absolutely
for fun. And the cardboard market went mad. It was don't quote me on this, but I think that it went to -£5 for cardboard, the rebate on cardboard, the commercial rebate for producers, which meant you had to pay someone to take your blooming cardboard away. By the time COVID had ended, it was up around £100 a ton. You know, or maybe even more. I'd have to look back over the records. Wow. We don't deal in cardboard, so that's not my market. But I'm just giving you one example of the just like this. You know, the packaging companies, absolutely. You know, they had their own problems as well. But you know, those little anecdotes, and you'd hear people coming out of COVID going, "Oh, what a great time! We've made a fortune and everything," which is great.
Yeah,
but when you're not doing that, then it's a little bit difficult. But yeah, I mean, we went down. We had a wall dropped down for COVID. Kept around about at the beginning. It was around about 5% of our business, give or take.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty
very tough.
grim. But it was only me working, so you know, silver linings. and then it took this exponential curve, and it came out like that, you know. But I know that from a macro perspective, some of the huge confidential shredding companies, the names that will probably roll off everybody's tongue if you ask them, oh, can you name a shredding company? Those types of guys.
Yes.
If you think about it, there's offices in Canary Wharf that just haven't reopened.
No, I absolutely.
Yeah, remote working, hybrid working, all these sorts of things. And that's really affected those huge companies who aren't able to be as dynamic as us.
Yes.
It's affected them in quite a big way. So coming out of COVID, the rise of everything, that was great. That was lovely. There was the loans, the ubiquitous loans that were out there, you know, which most people, and we did, took advantage of, just to help us along.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's but that by far and away that was the biggest challenge. And funnily enough, it does make when because I do get asked this question a few times. When you talk to people, what sort of challenges do you go through? Well, the ones that everybody else does. Staffing, HR problems.
Yeah.
Cost of utilities. God, my landlord's put the price up of the rental
Yes.
again. Why am I paying that for that? Insurance premiums, please explain. All those sorts of things. We've all got those stories. These are common across all.
Absolutely. It's interesting you're saying that fairly early on about, one day we'll laugh at this. It is something I often do with the people I work with, which is in the middle of something that feels terrible, that real horrible place, is just lock this in, and then when we get to the other side, see it. Let's be able to see it for what it was.
Perspective, yeah,
is an obstacle, not about not the end. And because I think most people in business, me included, it sounds like you included, go through those situations where it feels like it possibly could be terminal, and it really feels that bad, and be able to say, okay, I've been through this before, and I remember thinking at that point it was going to end, and it didn't. And there's a therefore, I've done that 3 or 4 times, therefore this might feel like the end. It probably isn't. And starting to have that mentality, I think, is part of building that resilience that we all need.
Yeah. And this is where flexibility, both within your organisation and with other organisations, is key.
Yeah.
I sometimes I've got to think twice about saying some of the things that I come out with sometimes. But
all good from this end.
Sometimes you've got to. We've had customers who've come to us and said, we want to cancel our service. So of course you immediately turn around and say, what have we done wrong? That's most people's instinct. We've tailored that question now to, is there anything we can improve on to stop you from cancelling that service? Well, again, ask any of our customers. We turn up when we say we're going to do. We charge a fair price. I think our annual customer satisfaction survey always comes back saying we charge either a good price or a fair price.
Great.
All these good things, but we've had a couple of occasions where people have turned around and go, look, I just can't afford to pay you. And okay, well, this actually happened on Monday. We got a phone call from somebody who said we want to cancel our service. We're going to shred stuff ourselves, and this was a slightly different. This was more of an everyday one, which was, well, okay, let's have a look at this. What are you thinking of doing? Well, we're going to shred ourselves. Okay. Well, I know, and my staff know how much this company produces. They produce a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A lot of paper. So I said, who's gonna do the shredding? Well, every member of staff. All right. Well, how's okay? So how's that going to work? Well, they're on 4 floors. In fact, they have the subfloor as well. So they're on 5 floors in this Victorian building in the centre of a large city.
Right.
And they said, we're going to put shredding machines all over. Oh, right. You're going to put those rubbishy little ones that you can get for 150 quid. No, not those. No. We're buying the really good ones. Oh, when you say the really good ones, well, how much are they? Well, they're between. I think we've got them so that they're going to sell us multiple for less than £1,000 a unit. Okay, right. Well, that's one of those is going to pay for your service, what we charge you for 2 years. And you're on about buying multiple units. Yeah, they're going to be for each of the. Right. Okay. So already. You're spending way more than you're spending with us.
Yeah.
On a piece of machinery, it's not exactly an asset, but it's going to sit there depreciating on your balance sheet for whatever very quickly, because trust me, they break down and you'll throw them away. And then Who's going to do the shredding? Well, each of the members of staff. Well, I know how much paper you produce. You can have the hugest office machine you can buy, but that still only takes 4 or 5 sheets tops, and you have to take all the staples out and this and that. So you have your staff doing all that, and trust me, they won't get the little things. They'll use the nails, and then they'll puncture that bit of skin underneath your nail when you try to take a thing out, and then they'll have to feed them through 4 or 5 at a time. And you produce the equivalent of around about 50 archive boxes worth every month.
Goodness.
Of paper.
Yeah.
Well, to do one archive box with one of those machines is going to take you around about 6 hours. Doing it 4 or 5 sheets at a time. There's 2,000 sheets in there. You know, and by this stage they're going, do you know what? I don't think I'll
brilliant.
I think you've talked me into it.
Brilliant.
But it's that. So that's one example. That's almost cognitive dissonance. It's like, this is the decision. Have they put it through the will it make the boat go faster test?
Absolutely.
Clearly not.
Absolutely.
Clearly not. But the thing that I'm worried about telling you is this, is we've had customers who say, I literally cannot afford to pay you.
Right.
So it's like, right, okay, well, you're not in handcuffs. Our contract doesn't run out for another 8 months. By rights, I could make you pay me to the end of that contract or whatever. But it's not our poor service, is it? No, it's not your poor service. You're brilliant. We can't afford to pay you.
Yeah.
So we start looking at other ways to do it. And on a few occasions, we've looked at different ways where, well, let's give it a bit of a break. But that's going to give you such a backlog. How much can you store in your office of paper before you need to call us out because it's getting in the way?
Yes.
And how are you going to store it? You know, so you start looking through options like that. And it's when people are genuinely saying, please, I can't afford to pay my utilities bill. I can't afford to pay this. Well, of course, the alarm bells are ringing because you're thinking, well, I don't really want to get in a position of debt here.
Yeah.
But let's manage it this way. Let's only come out. I mean, I'm not being horrible here, but we'll only come out once every quarter. I won't pay in advance, not being funny. But we'll only come out once a quarter, or just finding ways to work with people.
Brilliant.
Where it fits in with them. Other ones where they say, oh, well, we've shed 5 staff, so I need 1 cabinet less.
Yes.
We lose a cabinet. Well, in previous companies I've worked for, it would have been, well, yeah, we'll come and take a cabinet away, but we're charging you the same.
Yeah.
Because you're in contract with us for the next 18 months. Well, no, we'll work with them and say, okay, let's take one of your cabinets away and we'll charge you X less for each collection.
Right. Yeah.
You know, just little stuff like that. And I think, you know, the word karma doesn't really come into business that much, does it? You know, it's business. The clue's in the word. But I think sometimes those sorts of gestures have led us to have longevity with people who might have just dropped.
100%. I actually believe the more we treat each other with the level of respect and care that we would want for ourselves, the more we build long-term relationships. And successful businesses are built on long-term relationships.
Yeah.
It's unsuccessful businesses that just burn clients that don't care and don't have that duty, don't have that care. So no, it all absolutely makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. So what else have you learned about growing your business? So we talked about the challenge you've had. What have you learned, whether from the challenges or the successes? What would be your biggest sort of learning from that?
Well, I think this goes back to my risk aversion, really. So it's growing sustainably. It's one of our 3 tenets, which is to work to the highest levels of security.
Brilliant.
To the highest levels of customer service, and to grow sustainably. There are 3 building blocks. That goes back to, look this guy up. He's called John Wooden, who's a basketball coach in America.
I'm familiar with him.
Yeah. And he's got the I believe it's called the Pyramid of Success.
Yeah.
Well, as I said before, I alluded to before, with a sports coaching background, you start to look around at other sports and things like that. Basketball's not in my wheelhouse really, but John Wooden is definitely a guy who is definitely worth reading up on and finding out more. I think he died a few years ago at a very old age, close to 100, I think he was. But he started with every new player. Where I'm rambling now. Sorry. He started with every new player. He showed them how to put their socks on.
Yes.
So yeah, so that they didn't get bad feet, so that they didn't miss out on games. They had 5 games a week, 4 games a week, something like that. So show them how to put the socks on. They won't miss games because of bad feet.
Brilliant.
So he had the pyramid of success. They're the 3 main tenets of what we build on, and the sustainability goes back to the me being slightly more risk averse than maybe some other people might be in business. So things that we do, one of the main things that we have always done is to make sure that we build in redundancy so that we don't let customers down.
Great, brilliant.
We've always had a level of redundancy in our operations. So if somebody turns around and says, well, actually, it's funny, we've had a job today where we went out, we were told there was going to be 70. There were actually 120 bags there.
Right, wow.
Our driver had already been and done other collections that day. It was the last trip. He put 90 on.
Right.
But we're going to have to come back for the other 30 on another day.
Right.
Well, is that acceptable? Well, we were told there were 70. We actually took 90 bags away. To put that into consideration, that's 100 kilos less than a ton on average.
Yeah, right.
90 bags. 100 bags pretty much equals a ton.
Right.
We've got to plan our routes out so that it's meticulous, so we're not overweight. We're not risking our drivers, our licenses, all those sorts of things, and endangering people on the road. So our driver took exactly the perfect decision, which was to say to the customer, if I put any more on, I will be overweight.
Yeah.
And I will, we don't do that as a company.
Brilliant.
However, we will come back and collect the other ones. So actually that contradicts what I said about the redundancy ever so slightly, but it shows there's a bit of flexibility there as well.
Yeah.
But we had the redundancy to take 20 more, 200 kilos more.
Yeah. Well, that's quite.
Because there's an element of redundancy on
a bit, isn't it? Yeah, no, totally get it.
So things like that. So redundancy, when we make investments, it just goes through vetting. A period of vetting internally. I've just another aside's just popped into my head, but just going through and making sure that again every box has been ticked, everything's done right before we make that decision. There'll be people watching this now and they'll be ripping their hair out, going, "What the hell's wrong with you, man? What are you doing? You know what?" If a business guru came into our business, there is a chance that they may turn around and say, "You have too many staff. I would have 0.75 or 0.5 too many of a staff." But that 0.5, when somebody does turn around and say, "Can you come tomorrow and pick up X?" We've got the ability to do that. So there's less chance of us letting people down, and that flexibility, I will say. That flexibility has paid us back in spades.
Brilliant.
In spades. Because a lot of the time we get customers ringing us up who are customers of very large shredding companies who are going mad because the other company's going, "Well, I can't come to you for another 3 weeks."
Yes. Yeah.
And they'll just start ringing around. They'll ring us up. And Belinda is now so accustomed to getting these phone calls, she knows what to say.
Brilliant.
Which is the truth, which is, we can come tomorrow, or we can come in 3 days' time, or we can do this. Sometimes you can't, and you have to let them down gently, but yeah. So that has paid us back in spades. That redundancy in I want to say in staff, but that makes it sound like
No, in the operation.
You understand what I mean?
No, I completely understand. Having more capacity than
yes,
is optimal, so that you can deal with those situations. And I think that's a part of a niche. You know, it may not be optimal in terms of performance and people per for what you need, but if it allows you to be flexible, then that is a niche in itself. And other businesses may have a belief that they need to run it as tight as possible to be as profitable as possible in that respect, but therefore potentially lose clients because they're not able to be flexible and go that extra mile, do that extra collection that you're able to do. So no, I totally get it.
Well, you've got to look at the pressures. You've got to look at the pressures on individual companies and why they make those decisions. Why has that PLC made that decision to overcharge people charge people where they're not going and doing collections because in their terms and conditions it allows them to, because they've got to report back to their shareholders, and their shareholders aren't thinking about 2 years down the line, you know. And maybe a VC might.
No, it's
but not an actual shareholder. A shareholder will say, I want my dividends this year, thank you. So you will make them pay the maximum. And we'll see what happens in 6 months' time. Do you know what I can do in 6 months' time? I can sell my shares in your company.
Yeah.
You know?
Very true.
So they make that decision to be cutthroat, to have less clients, to do this, to do that, you know, make all these decisions that I and my wife, as 50% partners in GoShred, can sit down at the dinner table at night and go, do you know what? I really think we should order those 5 whatevers, you know, because I think that this will make the boat go faster. Yeah, I think you're right, actually.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's why, you know, I've had a lot of approaches over the years from people. I'd like to invest in your company. I'm sure you would. But I don't want to have to report back to you because you will force me to make decisions that I don't want to make that actually in the long run is good for this company. And I don't want to have to sit there for 2 days having to explain it to you. So, you know, we've got to look at things. How do I do it is one way. How another person might do it is another way. But
absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned coaches earlier, and I'm keen to know, obviously we're a business coaching organisation, who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport or life in general, who've had the biggest influence on you?
Who's been a big influence on me? Well, when I started playing sports, I'm into everything. If it's a sport, I'm into it. It's as simple as that. And things took a bit of a change. I played rugby league. I was far too big for football. Playing rugby league, I was a prop forward.
Brilliant.
And in rugby league, they changed the scrums into the scrums that they have nowadays, which is basically a non-scrum.
Yeah.
The shape, shall we put it, of a prop forward changed from someone of my build into someone a little bit more racing snake.
Yeah.
So I sort of became, the word of the day, I sort of became redundant really in that sport. You know, who wants a big fat bloke running around the field being out of breath, doing short sprints and doing whatever? It's good when you try to power the ball over the line, etc. But it's not really good for the rest of the game, you know, especially the defensive side and all these good things. So I started casting around looking for another sport. A friend of mine asked me to play American football. So I went off to Huddersfield, down to Fartown, and played for the Rams. And that was in 1987, around about that time. Yeah, around about that time. I carried on playing rugby league for a few years alongside, but yeah. And then I've been involved in it ever since.
Brilliant.
So sports coaches, I've been so lucky. I've travelled to America a few times. I've actually coached in America, observed. I've been to visit the Naval Academy in Annapolis to visit the football team there. They're an anomaly.
Right.
These are kids who are being recruited to, you know, you have to do. I try to remember what it is. It's compulsory, but every single undergraduate at the Naval Academy has to do nuclear science,
right?
As a specialist, something along those lines, because it's so prevalent, you know. But anyway, these are real clever kids, but they're not being recruited like the other universities do, which is like, I want a 6'8" monster to play left tackle for me. They don't have that luxury at the Naval Academy. And yet, year in, year out, they were winning games against teams they should be losing to. So it's like, how are they doing that? How are they doing that? So we went over and went to study them. And there's so many takeaways. I will not bore you. We could take up hours with me going over the symmetries with business, between sports and business. So it would be the coaching staff there. There was the head coach was Ken Niumatalolo, and then there was a chap called Ashley, who was the offensive line coach, Ashley Ingram, who I'm still friends with.
Brilliant.
He's from Georgia. He's now the head coach at a university called Carson Newman. I spent a lot of time in Texas as well, so I have a lot of friends in Texas.
Brilliant.
A friend is a chap called Chad Worrell, who's the head coach of Pilot Point High School now. And high school football down there is just, I won't even begin to try and describe it. So I've got lots of friends who've influenced me, have helped me make decisions, and probably the Naval Academy's philosophy of having a scheme of playing that is appropriate to the profile of player that they get, basically has taught me to sort of to stay in your lane. Yeah. Really specialize in things that you are good at. What am I good at? What can I turn this to be a benefit to me? Brilliant. How's this going to help me through my life? How's it going to help the business? Does that work for us? Back to the old saying again. Does it make the boat go faster? And it's just using those sorts of philosophies. There's a lot of coaches. So here we go. Here's one example of the bad way to do it. A lot of coaches in the UK, young coaches, they watch the NFL. That's the pinnacle. That's the peak. And then they go out and recruit a load of kids from their local town. And they go, right, we're going to run an NFL-style offense. We're going to do this. We're going to chuck the ball so many yards. You're going to run down the field. You'll definitely catch it every single time. And all these wonderful things are going to happen. And they spend the next 2 years just pulling their hair out. Because, of course, they can't play like that.
Of course, yeah.
Well, how many times have we seen this in business, where it's like, why have you moved into that big glass office tower block? Why have you done that? Why are you investing your money in another way? That's not really what you do. That isn't what you specialize in.
Yeah.
So that's where sports has taught me a lot of things.
Brilliant.
How to realize your limitations, how to maximize what you're good at, how to minimize what you're not good at and cancel it out, hopefully. Introspection, reviewing what you've done, looking backwards, but not looking backwards with regret, looking backwards to learn.
Yep.
How did that go wrong? Why did that go wrong? How could we do it better next time?
Brilliant.
That's why when we got ISO 9001, everyone around me in the company was like, oh, God, like that. And I'm like, great. Because this teaches us how to do everything right, first time, every time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm bang up for that, So let's automate all the good stuff that we do and then review everything that's gone wrong.
Brilliant.
And to help us not do it again, So all those sorts of good things. I'm as far as business coaching is concerned, when you come across a good business coach, it's an oasis. It's an absolute oasis. And it should be grasped with both hands by anybody willing to listen. So I have a cohort of business mentors as well that I speak to. I get regular advice from. Brilliant. I talk to them, and a lot of people go, "Oh well, obviously that's managing directors of companies and things." No, it's not managing directors of companies. It's people at my level. In a lot of cases, it's people below my level. And I'm not saying that in any sort of condescending or arrogant way, but they're not managing directors or owners of a company, but they have so much to teach me. old saying that I heard once. I worked in when I was growing up from the age of 12 through to about 17. I worked in textiles mills in Elland. I grew up in Elland.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So I've worked in most of the textiles mills every summer during Bowers, Sanlam's, Benjamin Whiteley's, all these textiles mills, Dearden's. And I overheard someone saying once, well, if they wants to know how the best way to do it, lad, go and find the laziest bloke in factory and watch how he does it.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's like,
Brilliant.
well, it's instantly dismissible statement, but it's like, actually, yeah, he's right. The laziest person in the factory will probably show you the best way to do it. Oh, if I have to do it, then I'll do it this way, you know, and it's like super efficient.
Brilliant. Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely. Brilliant.
sorry, I do tend to ramble on a little bit.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So looking forward a little bit, Michael. What does the future look like for you guys, and what sort of challenges do you think you might face, if any?
Well, I hope we don't come up against any huge macro challenges like we did, like COVID.
Yeah.
The day-to-day challenges, as I said to you earlier, you know, we made a decision to press go on a capital expenditure program that we have run so many models in our minds on paper, etc. And we're hoping that's going to work. That challenge, if we can get through that challenge,
Brilliant.
that's going to take us up a little bit on the next level. Really bringing our scanning offering to the next level, finding more partners to work with. Partners of people that we can work with who are in our sphere of influence, doing similar things. We can subcontract our work through them. They can subcontract through us.
Brilliant.
So we're constantly looking for those sorts of business partners that we can work with, that I've got to say that, you know, that can be a real minefield over the years. You find people who you think, oh, yeah, you know, I really think we can work with these people, and then, you know, you just find that it's just bluster and they're not really interested. They just want me to go out and talk about their product to everybody else, you know.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you know, I tried that a couple of times. I'm not paying 700 quid to go out and tell everybody about everyone else's company for the honour of that. But anyway, yeah. So we're always on the lookout for that. So I think that's something that could be hopefully helpful for us. And then our industry's morphing. The confidential shredding industry is morphing.
Yep.
And I think we need to take a good hard look at how we do things.
Yeah.
And really a common misconception, just very quickly, a common misconception is that, oh, right, well, there's loads of waste companies, there's loads of this, there's loads of that. There'll be 5 or 6 shredding companies around this area. You know, everybody seems to be under that misapprehension, and wherever they are in the country, and it's like, no, there isn't. It's a very small, very incestuous industry. We all know each other. Everybody knows everybody else. We all see each other at the exhibitions.
Yeah.
Some of us have moved from one company to another, you know, and from the smallest to the largest company, you know, we all pretty much know each other. So it's a very small market. And I think we get a lot of people. We have this offering called the mini shred and the mini shred, which are domestic products.
Right.
And the mini shred is up to 5 sacks, which is the lowest in the industry. People tend not to come out for anything below 10 or maybe 20 sacks.
Oh, great.
So the entry level for most people is over 100 quid just for someone to come out and collect some shredding. That's too much. So we have this sub £50 mini shred offering, and that's worked out really well for us. And the mini shred is slightly bigger. That's 10 sacks. So that is something that we're looking to grow. So you're talking about periods, opportunities for growth. I think that could be it. The domestic and the small business for home workers, people at home who have, you know, unfortunately a relative has passed away. We've got all this paperwork to get rid of. It's not needed anymore. Let's get rid of that, but it needs to be taken care of properly. So there's that.
Brilliant. And what would you say to anyone that was thinking of going to business right now?
I'd say do it. I'd say make sure that you've got a support structure around you.
Yeah.
That will help you. And that's not just the ones that you might think, which is, oh, well, I hope the bank supports me, and I'll need this and I'll need that. It's actual your friends and your family. They're super important to you. Make sure you know enough about the subject that you're looking to go into.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I've seen on so many occasions people will say to, oh, well, if you're doing it, anyone can do. I'm gonna start my own business doing what you're doing. Right. Okay. Then. Well, first of all, why are you telling me?
Not as easy as that. Absolutely.
Yeah. But make sure you know enough about the subject.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you can't genuinely sit down, look yourself in the mirror, and say, I'm a bit of an expert in this. I know quite a lot about this. Yes. But not only that, check how your personal life is going. Have you got everything in order at home? Is everything going well? Are you financially sound? Have you got everything in order at home? Because if you can't do it at home, then you're definitely not going to be able to do it in a business.
Right. Yeah.
If you're reckless in your own life, if your first instinct every time you get a bonus is to go out and put a deposit down on an entry level Porsche just so you can own a Porsche or a this or a that, or if that's your first instinct as an employee, remain as an employee, because you're not built for work. You're not built for running your own company. That's not the type of person that should be running a company. And that might sound like a bit of a bold, who made you the arbiter, but I've been around the block a few times, and trust me.
Brilliant.
And remain as an employee, and then whatever motivates you, the new Porsche, the whatever, the 5 holidays a year, whatever, go for it. Absolutely go for it. But if all you're working for is to have a new Porsche or 5 holidays a year, and Janice and Graham do it, don't they? And they've got a cleaning business, and they've got that nice car, and they're off on holiday 5 times a year, and he's got all that fancy jewellery. And no, that's not what it's about. So that's it. And finally, I've been asked this a few times before. Everyone's winging it. Everybody's winging it. Every book that's ever been written, every lecture that's ever been given, every theory that's been come up with has been someone winging it to some extent or another. Let's try this. What about that? So everyone's winging it. The interest rates have been set. How have they arrived at that? Well, 5 people sat around at a desk and opined, and they've set the interest rate. Right, okay then. Well, that's 5 people. All right, well, there's a bit of a checks and balances there, but they were flipping winging it. Mm-hmm. So don't be worried about winging it, because everyone's winging it and everyone's giving it a go. And everyone, unless they are a narcissistic whatever, has periods of doubt.
Yep, absolutely.
And imposter syndrome. Everybody. So when you feel yourself feeling that, am I the right person to do this? Should I be doing this? Good. Glad you're asking yourself that, because that's your internal checks and balances. It's asking yourself whether or not you're right to do this. And you're right to ask yourself that question. Now answer it.
Brilliant.
Answer it by doing the thing, or answer it by working out how you're going to do the thing, or answer it by working out how you're going to get someone else to do the thing even better. And surround yourself with people who are more talented than you in things that you're not very good at.
Yeah.
100%. And don't be afraid to delegate to them. Right? Make sure you delegate to those people, because you're paying them to be better than you at that job. Is that enough? Well, I do you, Chris.
Thank you. Very sound advice. Well, thanks, Mark. It's been fascinating talking. And for anyone that's watching that would like to get in touch with you or the company, what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, you can go to goshred.co.uk. You can contact us about confidential shredding. You can contact us about document scanning on that, goshred.co.uk. You can call us on 0333 200 4468. That's 0333 200 4468. Or send us an email at info@ghostred.co.uk. Although nobody ever follows that instruction, do they? It's 2024 now. Oh, we're on socials as well. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. And you can even find us on Instagram. But
Brilliant.
I'm not an Insta type of guy, so we don't put too much on there. But when we do, it's definitely worth looking at.
Brilliant. Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Michael. It's been really fascinating. And yeah, well, maybe you swing by another 6-12 months and just see how things have developed for you.
Please do. Yeah, I'll be pleased to talk to you again then, Chris. Thank you so much for having me on. Really appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Showcasing companies in this region. We're massive advocates for companies in this region. We only use companies in this region for everything. Our suppliers are all Yorkshire-based companies. So,
brilliant.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Cheers.